Okay, so we are now live on Facebook. It's 7:30 on Wednesday Eastern Time. And I want to welcome everybody to the Confidence Hustle. I'm Joyce Goldberg, and I talk with women from all walks of life who are killing it with their confidence. And tonight we are so lucky to be talking about the confidence to scream your personal brand to the world with our guest, Laura Fravel. While Laura and I are talking, please feel free to ask questions in the comments, and we'll address any questions and comments at the end of the discussion. So hopefully everyone's got some great things that they want to add and talk about. So let me introduce Laura to you. Laura uses her 20 years of national and international media and big brand storytelling experience to help thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and purpose-driven businesses uncover and leverage their authentic story and expertise into a powerful brand they can scream to the world. Laura has worked as a story producer for big media companies like National Geographic Channel, Nat Geo Wild and their subsidiaries, the New York Times ad agency called T Brand Studios, and Discovery Channel brand. So impressive, Laura. And Laura now, today, helps her clients to be seen, profitable, and impactful. She is a branding strategist and a storyteller, and she works with leaders both in business for themselves as well as those within larger organizations to bring their personal genius, passions, and ideas to life in a profitable and meaningful way. So welcome, Laura, to our show. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
This is really great. Thanks. And we're going to start with our questions. And before we get started, I just want to. I hear, this is going to sound so crazy, but I hear my son knocking on the door, and I had locked the door. So give me 1 second. There's always something.
It is. Well, hello everyone out there. While Joyce is tending to her kid, please, as we go, as Joyce said, throw some comments in there. I was just talking to everyone. I feel like so I'm talking crazy. To myself, but you know.
So, Laura, so now that I'm back, I'm sorry about that, everybody. No. I wanted to start by asking you, or basically saying, you have such a varied and impressive resume. Can you give us some context around how you got to where you are today in your business?
Yeah, it was not a straight path necessarily. I think, it might sound cliche, but I think I followed what I loved. So I think I just have a certain bit of personality. My parents probably wanted to kill me when I was younger, but, that kind of bucked the norm. I was always very curious and wanted to, explore new things. But I think I still always have that curiosity to learn and explore and I get bored very easily. So I set out more to, originally, I was really interested in marine biology, decided I didn't want to be a scientist because it was too analytical and not creative. So I went out to kind of teach the world more about the oceans and the environment, and took me overseas for a few years. And that's when I started really loving kind of storytelling and kind of wanted to really do more. At first, it was more in the environmental sector. So I wanted to do more storytelling in that realm. So headed, to make a long story short, I kind of went around the world a little, ended up in DC, tried to get a job at National Geographic, eventually did. And that's where a lot of the storytelling experience, my early storytelling experience happened, was at National Geographic. And then I kind of set out on my own and did many others, Discovery and a little bit for Netflix, and then it just eventually turned into kind of brand storytelling, and got fed up with the corporate world. And by that time I also had kids and wanted more flexibility, and some of the the things I was doing had me traveling a lot. And I just really, over the years, saw how impactful one person's story can be. All the interviews and storytelling I did for TV and brands, it was always, focusing on one character, one real person and their story. So
Mm.
that's why I kind of, then followed my passion of, largely women, uplifting women, entrepreneurs, leaders to help them tell their story in a really powerful way.
So interesting. So can you give a little example, Laura, of, you said that, you had first, you were traveling around the world and you were, doing some work in marine biology and stuff, and then
Hmm.
it sort of morphed into the storytelling. Can you kind of take us through how that happened? Like
Yeah,
with an example, maybe?
I think first I just ended up actually doing the science of marine biology and realized it was so analytical. Oh my gosh. Give credit to scientists and their meticulous
Yeah,
analyzation skills.
but it wasn't rocking your world.
It wasn't. I was bored out of my
Yeah.
mind. So that's when I was like, oh, what else can I do with this science degree? Well, I can help teach people. So I actually, at that point, I was right after college, I was living in Australia and I was working
Oh,
on the Great Barrier Reef, which is,
mm,
yeah, was
beautiful.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's where I started doing, okay, well, I can teach people about the reef and how to preserve it. And it was a lot of talking to tourists from all over the world because people from all over the world would come. And I just loved hearing their stories, their travels. And then just being able to educate and enlighten people about stories about the reef, at that point in time. And that's
Right.
where I realized how much I really enjoyed just using stories to open people's eyes, create impact. In that point, it was more about the environment and saving the reef.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I was like, wow, telling stories of people around the world just opens their eyes to things. It's what connects us, and really creates an impact. And, in regards to business, that impact can be both, serving people as well as profit.
Right, right, exactly. And I do want to get to that a little later because I feel like there's more about that we can, talk about. Um, so you also talk a lot now in your business about personal branding. Can you
Hmm.
educate us on what that means to you or to your clients?
Yeah. So yeah, I was really hesitant at the beginning to say personal branding because I think times are changing. But originally, personal branding was like Kim Kardashian. You want to be famous and out there and
Right.
bold, and I think nowadays it's your story. I think
Mhm.
uh, the times have changed where we used to give, if someone wanted to hire us, we'd give them their resume, we'd meet in person, and now with the digital world, whether someone refers you or whether you meet, online or at a networking event and they get your name, what's the first thing they do? They Google you. So you have this whole presence out
Yes.
there that's more than just your
Mhm.
resume now. And I think also people, employers and, potential clients, they value not just your list of credentials these days, but also they want to see your personality and what you stand for and your values. And um,
Mhm.
I think that's a lot more in marketing. So yeah, to me, your personal brand is your story, what you put out into the world. It's and I mean it in a really authentic way, finding who are you, what
Mhm.
you stand for, what's your unique value, and you pull together that
Right.
whole past experience and expertise along with the dose of personality, and that's your personal brand. It's how people hire
It's
you, whether
interesting.
yeah.
Right. Because I know that you also say, and correct me because I'm not going to get it right, but if
Mhm.
you don't take charge of your brand, somebody else, like it's your story's out there. I forgot
Right.
exactly how you say it, but it really resonated with me, and I'm sure it would with our listeners. How do you say that again?
I think I've said a lot. If you don't, your story's out there, and if you don't take hold of it, someone else will. So if you don't craft your narrative, someone else
Right.
will craft it for you, especially just because we have so much information at our fingertips with the
Yes.
digital world.
Right.
And it's amazing. I think most of my clients, I'd say 1 out of 10 of my clients, I always ask, have you Googled yourself in the past year? And usually there's like 1 out of 10 who have Googled themselves, which is pretty,
Yeah.
most people don't have anything that crazy out there, but still, someone Googles your name, they're looking to hire you. And especially if you've pivoted or changed jobs, you might have old bio, like on the front page, there might be an old bio of what you're doing one thing and now what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And they always say,
Hmm.
confused minds never buy. So if the story you're putting out into the world isn't super clear and consistent, I think it's, doing harm to your ability to really
Right.
accomplish what you want to
Right.
accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. And
Yeah.
I was listening to you say that at one point, and I went and I did Google myself,
Did you?
and there
That's
was a
great.
story out there from like 4 jobs ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I gotta fix that. But it's great
Yep,
advice, and it's true. You sort of have to take control. Don't let the internet
you do.
control what is out there about you. You have to take charge of getting the word out about yourself and controlling that
Right.
message. So I think that's such great advice, Laura.
And it's
Um,
amazing. It's amazing we have this opportunity to be able to
yeah,
put
right.
ourselves out there and be seen. It's like your megaphone.
Hmm.
You don't have to blast it to the whole world, but you can be really thoughtful and do it to the audience that you're targeting. So
Right, right. So empowering.
it is. It is.
So
Yeah.
you also have on your website a really beautiful quote from Helen Keller, and I wanted to talk about that tonight.
Hmm.
The quote is, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. And I was curious if you could share why you picked that quote.
I love that quote. Um, I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying in the beginning, that I think I've always been one who's very curious, like learning. I get bored very easily. And I think I'm not one to stay in my comfort zone per se, or,
Hmm.
stay always in a comfort zone. I kind of like being pushed out of my comfort zone just because
It's
it's
great.
more fun. I think that's when we grow as a person. Um,
Hmm.
that's when we have really great experiences. So yeah,
Yeah,
I've
it's
kind of
really, it
always
is
followed that in my kind of life.
so wonderful because, you know, people, it's great that you can push yourself out of your comfort zone because there's a lot of people out there that really cannot do that. And since we're talking about confidence, on this show,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people, who are a little bit more on the, I would say, on the introverted side, including
Hmm.
myself. And we talk about screaming your brand to the world. And I know that I feel a little trepidation about screaming my brand to the world because I feel like, am I going to be able to do something like that with the
Hmm.
confidence that you need to stand by what you're saying and really believe in it? And how do you help your clients get past that trepidation if they have it?
Yeah, and I'd say 90% of all of my clients have that. I think we all, that imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
I
Mm.
think, even I have it, I have my moments, many moments. Um, I think for me, I think number one, what I espouse and help my clients with is getting really clear on that story. Who where do you want to go in your career and
Mhm.
life? Where have you been? Okay, now how do we tell the story of, how what's that story to get to where you want to go? And really looking at, what are your values? What do you stand for? All of that. So kind of doing that deep dive and coming up with that really clear story. And usually it just
Mhm.
takes an outside perspective. Usually it's there. It's like, for an outside perspective, it's like headlights. But I think when we're so in it, it's really hard to
Mhm.
see. There's usually that through line through everything. So then once you get really clear on that story, it's just so much easier to muster a little bit of courage to start, talking. And when I say scream it to the world, I go back and forth whether I should be using that language or not, but for that reason, um, it's really about just mustering that courage I don't think any of us are born with confidence, but it's mustering that courage to build the confidence, to just
Right.
start talking to your audience, which
Right.
sometimes people's audiences are like one or two people. It's like investors on a board or something, if you're trying to get investment for a startup. Or it could be,
Right.
all female entrepreneurs out there. So that's part of it.
Hmm. That's really great. And I think that you must see the lights go on when people, because that's something that I'm sure is very interesting, because you're living with yourself. You can't really see things that objectively. It's hard to figure
Yeah.
out what you want to say about yourself, or what makes you different than other people. And then
Hmm.
I can imagine that you have clients that the light bulb goes off when you're like, I can see it totally clearly. This is,
Hmm.
how you should do it, or how you should talk about yourself, or this is your unique factor. And
Yeah.
then, it takes you as the objective person to really draw that out, because they've been living with themselves.
Yeah. 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 You
I can
you
imagine that.
there's so many pieces of our life. I think you were on a little group call with me. I have the round table I do, and there
Yeah.
was a woman. I'll use an example only because I know her really well. There's one woman who was in HR, but she'd also had a sex shop, and it's like, how do you tie these two things together? Like, I hope
Forgot about that,
we're
right?
are we not allowed to be PG? But it really boiled down to she helped people have difficult conversations. She helped people with especially mental illness was something she really. So it's,
Mhm.
everyone, no matter how disparate your path seems, there's always some thread that ties them together. And that's just an
So
extreme.
encouraging.
That's a more extreme example.
Yeah, but it's such a great example.
It
It's a
is,
great
yeah.
example. It was so that's really it's really encouraging to know that that you can put your story together, and you do. Everyone has a story. No one's
They do.
that boring. That right.
Yeah,
So
and that's what makes us so unique too, and, like, that's what
yes,
makes us stand out is your unique path, because no one has your exact path, so.
right, right. So great. So you're a single mom.
Mhm,
And
I
I
am.
was wondering, right? So doing all this stuff, and how did you find the confidence, Laura, to start your own business, knowing you have your kids, your
Yeah.
responsibility, and what went through? How did you come to the decision?
Well, I started out on my own before my kids were even born, uh so I kind of fell into, I was working at National Geographic, wanted to move west, um,
Hmm.
with my then husband, uh and I basically went contract for National Geographic from afar. And then I slowly started a business. It was kind of more in the TV media branding, visual storytelling
Right.
realm. But then I was traveling lots, really getting fed up with the corporate world and the demands and lack of flexibility
Yeah.
and non-family friendly
Mhm.
policies, the whole nine yards that everybody experiences. So I knew I wanted to shift, and I was trying to figure out that shift, and I think the divorce was actually the impetus to make that change. I knew the divorce was on the horizon, and I was like, if I'm going to make
Right.
a change, I better make it now.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
think partially because I was faced with the decision, do I go back full time or stay on my own? And I think um yeah, being out on your own offers so much flexibility, and I don't know, you can really lean into your strengths. You can do what you love. You can do what you do best. And that's when you really thrive. And I think are, quote unquote, successful, happiness, financially, that
Right.
type of thing.
Right.
So yeah, I won't lie, it was terrifying. And it still is. Because there's not
Yeah.
that backup. But yeah, I think fear also is a great motivator as well. But yeah,
That is true.
it's not easy, but it's worth it,
Right.
put it that way,
Right.
and very rewarding.
Yeah. And I feel like I can hear the passion in your voice when you're talking about it. So
Oh,
clearly it was
same.
the right decision for you. And so very exciting to be able to do that.
Yeah,
And like you said, success is different for different people. So,
it is.
you can really have your flexibility that way, which is so nice.
And I think success is different at different parts in your life too.
Right.
You know, some
Mhm.
parts of your life are very, you want that job within a corporate entity or whatever. You want the regular paycheck. And I think certain parts, you want more freedom. You know, I loved doing stories for National Geographic at that point in time, but I think at
Yeah.
this point in time, I've found a whole new passion that spawned from that. So,
It's so terrific. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And there's a place and time for things, right?
exactly,
So,
exactly.
um, what would you say is the biggest challenge, that women you work with encounter when they're going through this, self-discovery and trying to,
Yeah.
find what the brand is for them?
It's definitely being able to tell your story, what we just kind of talked about, pulling all those pieces together in a super succinct, concise manner. Um,
Hmm.
I think that's the number one thing. And then the next hurdle, I think, is once you have that, it makes it easier to put yourself out there. But I think it's still, I think we all, especially women, are raised to be modest, to not brag. We love highlighting other women's success, but a lot less our own success. It's much easier to do that. So I think that's the next hurdle. But and that's kind of the next phase I work with people on is, come up with a strategy to get yourself out there in front of the audience that you're talking
Right.
to, not just everyone, in a really strategic, efficient
Yes.
way.
Right. And I can imagine that, like everything else, like playing sports or practicing a new language, you have to practice talking about yourself because it's not something like you said. We don't all just talk about ourselves day after day after day about what we do, and it's really new for a lot of people. So I could imagine
Yeah,
that being um,
especially as women
something
of
you
a
really
certain
have to get used.
age.
Yes,
We didn't grow up with
100%.
it with social
No,
media. No,
right.
the younger ones have a much easier time with it. Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
it really does stem from just starting to talk. I think and I always say think of it more as self-expression than self-promotion. So think of
Easier to be
also,
able to do it. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, you're just expressing your values, what you stand for, the expertise and genius you can share with the world. So, take it back to, okay, what is, if you have your own business, what are my clients' kind of pain points? Okay,
Right.
now how can I share information that will help them and express your
Right.
genius? So it's less about,
Yes.
nowadays, it's less about promoting yourself as it is about establishing yourself as an expert in your niche.
Right. And
Yeah,
serving other people. And I
yeah,
guess if you take
exactly.
it that way, that you're serving others, it doesn't feel so braggy. I can't think of the word
Absolutely.
or something, and maybe more comfortable. So, but
Right.
talking about serving other people,
Hmm.
you you have so many experiences and projects and things that you've been working on or you had worked on, but I
Hmm.
think that there's some things on your website as well, that you do to helping women and children and different things. And I just was so taken with the work, and I was wondering if you could take a few minutes and just describe what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. No, I guess over the years, working in the corporate world and especially in TV, I think it's a very male dominated world. And then traveling to countries like Africa and Vietnam and South America, third world countries. And then having two girls and myself, I think that's just kind of one of the things I've become passionate about is like we were just talking about, women are modest. We don't speak up as much. Um, Helping elevate their voices and speak out. So yeah, I've done some projects kind of the more NGO nonprofit type projects, bringing awareness to, the women who walk 4 hours a day to get water and cook,
Right.
and how that affects their education. That's all of the female job there. So I've done some
Right.
projects on that. Some things regarding adoption. And then, I think being of service to, the woman next door who owns a business and is trying to do business coaching or wellness, or any number of those things. So I think it's about connecting us all, because we're all in the same boat in a sense,
Right.
with our
Yeah.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so nice, and I would encourage people to visit Laura's website, because it is a beautiful website, and
Oh,
so
thank you.
many nice things and services, and just the stories about the work that you're doing to lift up these women is
Oh, thank
also
you.
really, really special. So I definitely want to just make a shout out for that.
Thanks.
And I guess as our final question, and then we're going to check to see if we have any comments or questions from our listeners, but what would a key piece of advice be, Laura, that you would want to give to a woman who is struggling to find her voice and her confidence?
I would say to just look really deep into well, I think you have the deep dive piece, but I think more than anything, you just have to start talking and putting yourself out there. So, social media is a very easy, accessible way, and that's where people most start. Um, but you can also write blog articles if writing long format is more your thing, or if you hate writing and love getting on video, which not as many women our age. I congratulate you. That's amazing that you do this. So many people shy away from video, so it's wonderful. So kind of look at what you enjoy doing the most, and then just start talking. You can do Instagrams. The first time I ever did video, it was on Instagram stories, because you could take a video and it disappears within 24 hours, never to
Yeah,
be seen again. Um,
right.
so, and so, just commit to, even posting something one day a week, if that's the easiest. And
Yeah.
I think another huge thing is accountability. So, like, I have accountability with another entrepreneurial woman. We meet every Thursday, but so we don't do as much of the, social media accountability. We do more. We set a goal for the week, and if we don't meet it, whoever doesn't meet their goal then has to buy the other one a glass of wine. That
Love
type of
it.
thing. So
Yes.
you have a little bit more motivation to do what you said you were going to do. So I think just accountability is it just puts that fire under you to actually do it. And then once you start
Yeah.
doing it, it just becomes easier and easier, and you start realizing what resonates with your audience, what you enjoy talking about and are passionate about. So I think it really
Right.
helps.
It's great advice. Thank you so much. So I think we're going to go to our Facebook group and see if we have anybody on, um, and we can answer any questions. Yes. Susan Eckstein says,
Oh,
hi,
hi,
ladies. So
Susan.
excited for this conversation.
Susan is another great women's empowerment gal.
100%. And actually, I'm just going to go off course right now and say that
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everybody who's listening that I found Laura kind of because she did an interview with Chuck Allen on this amazing podcast. So if you're looking for a new podcast to listen to, it's called Cool Change.
Yeah.
And
He's great.
Laura did an interview on Cool Change, and Susan just did an interview on Cool
Yeah.
Change. So it's such a great, and you guys have that in common, which is really nice. And I know you're friends on you're connected on LinkedIn. You have to be
I had
professional
no
on
idea
LinkedIn.
he knew
So
Chuck. had no idea he knew Chuck from Cool Change podcast, though. It was kind of like, wait, what? It's kind of funny.
Oh, yeah. So it's a small world, right?
It is.
So,
It's a very small world.
but yeah. So, and Lily is on and says, thank you for doing this tonight. She says hi. And and Susan says, I love Laura's interview on Cool Change.
Oh,
So
thanks.
if for some reason you're watching this and it's not live, but you're watching it recorded and you have a question for Laura or you'd like to get in touch with her, or if you are listening tonight and you want to know how to get in touch with Laura, how would people get in touch with you if they want to work with you on their branding?
Anybody can email me, even if you just have a question, at laura@laurafravel.com. Also, contact info on my site, laurafravel.com. And I'd also welcome anyone to come join. I have a roundtable once a month, which you've joined, Joyce. It's a lovely conversation of women. It's free. February's is February 11th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So, and I'm usually on LinkedIn more than Facebook. But you can also find me on there.
Awesome. Yeah. Terrific. So Laura, thank you. This has been such a great conversation. And I wanted to also thank everybody, Lily and Susan and everybody else who's tuned in tonight, for listening to our conversation, for being here. And I wanted to just let everybody know that the Confidence Hustle interviews, they used to be brought to you by the Confidence Hustle, which was my old business name, but I've recently changed my business name to Joyce Goldberg Consulting, and I help women-owned small businesses create the professional content they need to succeed. So you can learn more about my services at my website, joycegoldberg.com. And you can also watch past Confidence Hustle interviews on my YouTube channel, which is my entire name, Joyce Goldberg Fine. And if you'd like to contact me directly by email, I can be reached at jgoldbergfine@gmail.com. So Laura, thank you again for being with us tonight. Our conversation was great and you do such amazing work, and thank you for that.
Thank you. I love this series and I'm so glad you're doing it and promoting confidence. And I think it's wonderful.
Thanks. Well, it's been really fun being able to meet such amazing women who are doing such amazing things with their lives and sharing it with the world, which is really a gift.
You're doing storytelling. That's part of the fun of storytelling, is like you get to meet so many, you have an excuse to like meet interesting people doing interesting things.
It really is true. And that's what life is about, right? Really just connecting and sharing. So
exciting.
Speaking of, I have another interview scheduled for February 10th. So mark your calendars. We're going to be talking with Nancy Fox about having the confidence to make a career change after 40. So that's on February 10th. I hope everybody has a wonderful evening. Again, thank you for watching The Confidence Hustle, and I'll see you real soon. Bye, Laura. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Joyce.
Bye. You're welcome.